Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Finding a new podcast to listen to is easy. Finding a good new podcast, that's a little tougher. So let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. If you like fascinating information you can use in your life from some of the top experts in the world, you're going to like Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and recently we've covered topics like the benefits of laughing, the science of dreaming, where your deep desires come from, even how to make the perfect burger. We produce 3 episodes a week, and each episode is packed with rock-solid intel that will make your life better. And we have a lot of fun doing it. Something You Should Know has been ranked on the Apple Podcast charts every day for over 7 years. A lot of people like this podcast, and you will too. Listen to Something You Should Know wherever you get your podcasts. Look for the bright yellow light bulb on the blue background. It's Something You Should Know.
Hey there, Kristin here to tell you a few things before we jump into today's heart-wrenching episode. First of all, let's talk about the episode itself, which will bring back special guest host Joanna Robinson. So get excited for that. Joanna and I equipped ourselves with tequila to ensure that we had the lubrication that we needed to move through this heartache wormhole together. And if Willow crying wasn't enough to completely undo you, don't worry. We've worked real hard to just try to completely undo you in this episode of Buffering the Vampire Slayer, because Jenny and I worked on this week's song in a different and pretty special way, with me taking the lead on lyrics and Jenny on melody. We wrote the song from Willow's point of view. And you know what that means, right? Apart from probably you had to pull over your car even with the thought of that. It also means we've cast ourselves a Willow. Singing this week's song is our friend Bess Rogers. If you don't already know Bess's music, Run, Do Not Walk. Bess Rogers is her complete name, and she rules. We've both known Bess for several years. Jenny and Bess actually went to SUNY Purchase together, and we are so honored to bring her into the Buffering universe today at the end of today's episode. So many emotions. That's only the start. I have so many more things to tell you before we get into this episode. First of all, 2 weeks ago, we all learned that Buffy is getting a reboot. What the fuck? We know very little so far, but the few things we've learned have caused, a stir on the internet, as they do. Speaking of Joanna Robinson, she and I sat down a few days after that announcement, and we made a special episode together for all of the Buffering patrons and all of the Storm of Spoilers patrons. Storm of Spoilers is one of Joanna's incredible podcasts, where Joanna and I dig in on what we know, or at that point, what we knew, how we feel, and all that good stuff. I'm sure that Jenny and I will continue to have a lot to say as things unfold. Holy crap, guys. Whew. Related to special bonus content, our patrons at the $10 or higher level also got a sweet new mailbag episode from Jenny and I this week, including a reading of an email about Mark Blucas fan club that got Jenny giddier than I've ever seen her to date, which is saying a lot, as you avid listeners will know. Just a couple more things before we get into today's Sobfest. Last week, I guested on Angel on Top. It's the episode called Room with a View. It's all about Cordelia. And oh my God, I missed her so much. I had so much fun guesting with Brittany. And I hope you all enjoy my sweet return to the arms of my personal angel, Cordelia. Speaking of Angel on Top, you might want to get on over and follow them on Twitter if you don't already. You can follow them at Angel on Topcast, because this week they're picking 3 of their Twitter followers to win prizes, including an Angel Case Files book, a Cordelia action figure. She comes with some weaponry. Hold on to your hats. And the complete DVD set of Angel, all of the seasons. So Angel on Topcast on Twitter, that giveaway will be happening this week, and you can learn more over there. Last but not least, a reminder that we have a new Patreon level where you get exclusive t-shirts and enamel pins. You can learn about us, our Patreon, and our shop. There's new crop tops if you missed it last time over on our website, bufferingthevampireslayer.com. Are you ready? I am, Kristin. Are you ready also, Kristin? Yes, I am. Well, then let's do this. and welcome to Buffering the Vampire Slayer, a podcast where we'll be watching and discussing every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer one by one, spoiler-free. I'm Kristin Russo.
And I'm very special guest, Joanna Robinson.
I sent Joanna a script, I want you to know, that said, and I'm a special guest, and I really appreciate that you added very special because it's true. It is true. This week, we're talking about Season 4, Episode 6, Wild at Heart. Stay tuned at the end of this podcast every week for an original song written by Jenny Owen Youngs and I, recapping the Buffy episode we're discussing. And today, as I mentioned up at the top of the episode, we have a song that is being sung by the incredible Bess Rogers.
Wild at Heart was written by Marty Noxon and directed by David Grossman, and it originally aired on November 9th, 1999.
This is the one, okay, IMDb says, yeah, right. Exactly.
This is the one where
IMDb says this is the one when Oz falls hard for a sexy singer, I beg to differ, who also happens to be a werewolf. He must choose between Willow and his own animal instincts. But Joanna, I agree with you. This is the one where This is the one where literally every other note of mine is Willow, no.
This is the one where Seth Green didn't want to be on the show anymore.
Yeah, right? Seriously. Was it you and I who talked about this? Because I feel like somebody gave me the insight into like where Seth Green was. Like he was in movies at this time and he wasn't getting a lot of dialogue. Was it you who told me this story?
I mean, I know that he left because his movie career was taking off and that's where he thought he should be. I believe this way. I
mean, I'm behind it. I'm behind his decision in general, but like I really wish that we didn't have to live through this pain because of it, you know?
Yeah, I'm there are ways in which to write off a character and then there are ways in which to like feel like character assassination, and I will say that I think Buffy is like often not great at writing off characters for actors who want to go. This is what it says on the season 4 DVD. The writing team just had nothing for Oz. They were already having a hard time coming up with stuff for him to do or say in season 3. Seth proposed to go back to a recurring character, but Joss thought he was too important of a character at the time to downgrade him. Meanwhile, Seth was pursuing bigger roles and finally decided to leave. Joss had this whole arc that he wanted to stretch over the whole season, but Seth got signed for a movie, so they planned everything for him to leave sooner.
I see. I mean, it's there. It's the drama is there, and like I'm here for the drama. But I kind of agree, and like obviously we'll get into the like play-by-play of this, but the whole time, not the whole time, but half of the time, I'm like, Oz, would you do this? Like it just doesn't.
Oz wouldn't do this. That's
Oz
what I mean. Like,
wouldn't.
Here's what makes this episode work for me. It's entirely Allison Hannigan, 1000% makes this episode work for me. It makes this episode really affecting for me. So I'm not watching it just like shaking my head and going, ugh, this would never happen, you know. At the same time, if I step back for 2 seconds and think about it, I'm like, I don't think Oz would ever do this. They did like it's a clever way to try to come up, you know, with a way to explain uncharacteristic behavior in him. It's the wolf taking over, like whatever, you know.
Sure.
But there are moments in this episode, and we'll get to them, where I'm just like, no, Oz wouldn't do that. I'm sorry.
Same.
Same. So it's frustrating. Like I said, like it's fine for me when an actor wants to leave a show. It's fine for me when the plot has to bend in order to accommodate that. But with this instance and an instance that we'll talk about several years from now, I don't think this show really rose to meet the occasion in the same. I mean, I actually even feel like Angel leaving to have his own spinoff show at the end of season 3, that reason doesn't really ring true to me. And what ends up happening in all of those cases, and like I said, one of those will remain a mystery, it's like it creates this recurring narrative on Buffy. And I can apply it to every single male character that I can think of. All the men leave, you know, and that's an okay thematic thing that, like, you know, Buffy's dad, like Buffy feels abandoned by her dad to a certain degree. So like it kind of makes sense for me that, like, you know, she keeps encountering this from men she knows, but like I just don't feel like Oz would do this. I don't think this is a spoiler because it's a very minor character, but I was talking to a friend of mine today and I was like, is there any male character on Buffy who hasn't like let you down basically or whatever? And she gave me a name, and like I'm gonna say it, and then you could edit this out if you feel like it's a spoiler. I'm just gonna say it. we can move on. She said, Clem.
Oh, Clem.
And I was like, great, perfect answer.
Yes, that is. I agree with that 100%. And I don't know that that's a spoiler, right? Like, what is it? Is it? I don't know. We'll decide.
Clem is not even a twinkle in the show's eye yet. So I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah.
Oh God, I cannot wait until Clem is a twinkle in our eyes. Oh, okay. So let's get into this episode so we can get to these parts that you and I want to eviscerate. It sounds like together.
Yeah.
So I love this like cold open or whatever we call the part before the credits, because whatever, there's this like chase. She leaves the vamp off the fucking thing. She makes a pun. She's like, "You don't get my puns. Like my puns are so underappreciated." But then really the reason that I like this opening scene, Joanna, is because I forgot that here you are again, and here Spike is again. We get Spike in the fucking pre-credits open.
Yeah, I wonder if some of your listeners may be watching through for the first time, like we're watching this and we're like, oh, it's a Spike episode. Psych! It's definitely not. But
oh no,
I really love this moment because, like, James Marsters is just like doing this over the fucking top, grandiose villain, little girl, like all of his shit, and then he just gets like undercut and tased. And even though I knew that was coming, I was like, as I was watching it, I was like, this is great. Right?
Is
great. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I feel like I didn't know who wrote this episode when I was watching it, and when I put our little notes together and saw that Marty Noxon wrote it, I was like, okay, yeah, because like the big bad is back, and this time tase is like a line that is like super simple, but just lands so well. So right, Spike is up, Spike is down. That's the last we see of Spike. And then we go into the episode after the credits, and we go to the bronze. And I wanted to ask you, Joanna, because this brought up feelings for me, because they're like sitting around the table and they're having this conversation about like, why are we back here? Like, we're in college now, but we're back here. And Willow is kind of like, it's kind of like this big comfy blanket. And it made me remember what it was like to go away to college and come back and like visit your old haunts. Like you felt like in my memory of myself at that age, I feel like I acted like I was an old woman, and I was like, boy, don't I remember spending time at Denny's,
Oh, the old Denny's is still here. The chicken fingers aren't as crispy as I remember, but
right?
Yeah, when you started to say this, Kristin, I was like, well, I know that Kristin was a lot cooler than I was in high school, and I don't think I had any haunts. And then you were like, Denny's. I was like, oh no, we went to Denny's. Yeah. Okay, I can hang with this conversation. We would go to Denny's until like 3 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah, you and I are the same exact kind of cool, Joanna, where we grow up at Denny's and now we make podcasts. So I think we're of the same. Yeah,
my old haunts, Denny's. Yeah. To go to old places, and I to be honest with you, I still do that. I was thinking about that today. Like, I live, still live in the Bay Area, Northern California, where I grew up, but I live in Oakland, and I grew up sort of in the North Bay. That doesn't make sense to anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. But point being, let's just say I live like 20 to 40 minutes away from where I grew up. Sometimes I just go over there to do errands because it feels more familiar, even though we have all the same stores here in Oakland. It's just a thing I do sometimes.
It's like nostalgia.
So, yeah. It's my warm, comfy blankie of like the car wash or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. Does Giles ever show up at the car wash with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, lattes are on me. And I'm like, great, Giles, thanks.
Oh, this like Giles shit. It's like, this is a kind of thing where I didn't watch this series as a young person, but I think, a lot of our listeners and a lot of us here in the buffering universe did, and then are watching it again as adults. And I feel like this is a scene that would have been lost on me had I watched it in high school or college, but really hit me in all the feels when Giles like sits down with the young people and is like, it's been ages since I've been to a gig. And they're all like, it's really brave that you're here.
I like that Oz defends Giles' record collection. Like, we talked before about how Oz feels about the record collection, but yeah, like everything that Anthony Stewart Head does in this episode, his like desperate, bored loneliness is delightful to me. Yeah, and also I think you and Jenny had a couple conversations about this already, but like this concept of townie is one I definitely learned about from this season of Buffy because I was definitely a freshman in college.
Oh.
I paced this show as I said before, so like I was a freshman in college when this came out.
Mhm.
So like whenever Xander refers to himself as a townie, which I think it like comes up the most probably in Beer Bad, but like it is a thing for him this season. That was like my entire context for the concept of townie was Xander. That's what I think of when I think of townie, and he says it again in this opening scene. And I just sort of want to like maybe make that a season 4 drinking game. Every time Xander refers to himself as townie,
Ooh,
that's good.
That's good. And you and I both have tequila with us right now.
We do.
So I can drink for townie.
Let's drink. Drink for townie. Cheers to you.
Cheers. Then I'm glad we just took a drink, Joanna. Because now we're gonna leave Giles and cut to Veruca.
Yeah.
Veruca, who Jenny and I talked about a little bit at Beer Bad. I want you to know that for a live audience of like 250 people, we said Veruca and they all booed. So I think collectively we're all in the same place here with Veruca and how we feel about Veruca.
There's a lot of bad shit that happens on Buffy Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evil people on this show. I think Veruca is my least favorite character.
Ooh.
No, not that she's a bad character.
But like...
and well performed. I have a visceral hatred for every single thing she does. At all. Because, I mean, I'm on record... not like this is a revolutionary thought. I'm on record as loving Willow and Oz so much.
Mm-hmm.
So this like sexy little what is Buffy call her like Kel Fiona or whatever? Trying to be like a faithful friend to Willow. Wedge in between. I hate her.
Yeah.
I hate her.
I hate her. I hate her right along with you. And I just like this first moment. Because we talked about her last episode and how she's sort of like swallowing the microphone and like tilting her neck at all sorts of angles. In this first moment we have with Veruca, she picks up her left leg for no reason. She just picks up her entire left leg while singing. And I just like can't. I can't with her body movements and I can't with her lyrics. Every lyric she sings is like, I can feel you twist. Like, what are you... Why?
The first lyric, which I've written down in all caps, is dip a finger in me. Fuck you, Veruca, go home. I hate you.
Oh my God, I want everybody to know that that would have been a guttural scream, but I had just taken a giant swig of tequila.
That was like a tequila scream.
It was a tequila. Yeah, it was a tequila scream. But I'm glad that I had a little bit of tequila for that moment because, oh, fucking hell. And that moment, I'm sure that you and I will have many more opportunities for guttural screams because there are so many more moments like that with her as this episode goes on. So...
I can't tell if like she's supposed to have some kind of like pheromone or something like that because like the fact that like Giles and Xander whatever, but the fact that Giles is sort of like captivated by her too, like and not in like a purely academic way, but in sort of like like a mesmerized kind of way, makes me feel like she's got some sort of like wolfy pheromone thing that she's working in this room.
I agree.
I was like, I wrote down like I'm sometimes hard on the kind of friend that Buffy is. I feel like it's often all about her. But I wrote down she eye fucks Oz in a way that even Buffy notices.
Buffy, we finally found what can like shake Buffy out of her self-absorbed state. And it's the way Oz looks at Veruca, which is totally not okay. But I agree. I do think that they make a play here for like, I mean, it kind of not reminded me of because that sounds like this preceded the other thing, but it made me think a lot about our Twilight werewolves, you know, the imprinting whole thing.
Yeah, the imprinting. Yeah.
I think this is like a precursor to that. And like, you know, you want so desperately in this episode to excuse Oz's behavior. So I feel like I'm also just like clinging to any hope that like, well, it was a chemical. There was a chemical situation that was happening. It was affecting everybody. But just generally speaking, fuck you, Veruca, right?
Yeah. Speaking of like wanting to defend people or not defending people, I do want to really quickly say I watched Beer Bad before I watched this today, and I hadn't seen it. Beer Bad is not one of the ones that I ever rewatch, so I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I forgot that Parker tries to pull that shit with Willow. And when he does, and Willow's reaction is so great because she's the best. When he did, I was like, man, I think you cut out, and wisely so, some of the like weird, feeble Parker like benefit of the doubt I was trying to give him in the last episode I was on. You were probably like, that's quite enough, Joanna. Thank you. But I still, enough of me sort of like caveating him or whatever made it in that like when I watched Pure Bad, I was like, no, this dude just sucks. So I apologize. I retract everything that I said. And yeah.
But I'm glad that we could see you through your full Parker arc. Your full Parker. Oh, so we cut from this like gross, horrible Veruca introduction to this really cute, sweet, like snuggly scene between Oz and Willow, which of course is here so that our hearts can break all the more. I think that's the purpose of this scene. Do you agree?
I do. This is my favorite Willow line of all time, which is her fake sleeping all Geminis to the raspberry hats. It is my favorite Willow line.
All Geminis to the raspberry hats.
No, faggot.
I'm not.
When she's trying to be as cute as possible in her fake sleep stupor. Yeah.
I think it sets us up for the very important dichotomy of this episode, which is Willow feeling like her relationship is one that is steeped in like a cute love, familial place, and that she's being threatened by something that's outside of that, which is like a purely sexual thing, right? Like that's like
right. He's her comfy blanket person.
Yeah.
And he says shit like, the only thing I mind is being away from you for 3 nights, which is adorable, but it's sort of like a little infantilizing, right? You know, and it's just sort of yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, like that she has like this cute high school relationship with him, and they're in college now, and what does that look like? But I like it, but at the same time, like once again, I can see this arc playing out over an entire season rather than let's cram Oz saying, I thought I was your comfy blanket person, and like this other stuff like in back-to-back scenes, like that he swings so wildly. But what you can, you know, because he's like, what you could say is that he's overcompensating because he knows that something's wrong, and he's like, you know, giving that extra effort of cute to her in order to mask this other thing, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think part of me saw like echoes of all of my past relationships in the like, you know, when you get to that place where you're just like comfortable, and Willow has this like, she's not talking like a kid, but she's kind of talking like a kid, you know?
She's baby talking, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like this, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like this whole episode is kind of this line of like the comfortability of their relationship. Yeah. And like any relationship that hits like a longer period of time. Granted, it's Willow, and Willow has a very particular breed of like innocence and what have you. But I do think that this is something that happens in like any relationship that's a long-term relationship where you get comfortable, and then like what happens when somebody else isn't comfortable, you know, and like they're just there because they're like, I'm a werewolf and we should fuck in the woods.
Yeah.
So
Veruca, I hate you. Sorry.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
I'm gonna just bring this up here, Joanna. Before we started taping, you had a dream, and
yeah.
I don't know if I can make the dream come true, but why don't you tell us what your dream is, and then hopefully I can make it true for us.
I had a dream that there would be a Veruca jingle, not the first hate jingle on this show, but you know, maybe the most passionate one. Yeah, hate jingle. So
like we brought you Go Away Riley. Why not bring you Fuck Off Veruca, or whatever your
Veruca? I Wanna Nuke Ya.
Okay, so we go to school. Buffy is doing really well in class, which is a turn.
Weird.
It's not a side of Buffy we've seen. And Willow is jealous, which I love. And then there's this.
I know, it's just like heavy side that precedes every Veruca scene.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what this made me think of. I say, like, I wrote down that Oz is at least smart enough to be hesitant to sit with her.
Right.
To say immediately that Willow's coming, like all this sort of stuff. So he's not like completely blind to the danger of what's happening here, right? But Veruca goes into what we now, thanks to Gillian Flynn's novel Gone Girl, can think of as like the cool girl thing, where she's like, I just love to eat. I don't like girls who are like, ooh, does that have dressing on it? And I'm like, listen, I am pro eating. Everyone should eat whatever you want to eat. But like this whole like, yeah, I eat burgers because I'm a cool girl thing. I'm like, go away, Veruca. Don't like
You don't have to. Well, and here's like the lesson in there is you don't have to like fucking tear other girls down for their fucking choices just to make yourself look sexy, Veruca.
Ugh.
So yeah, I mean, this is like the first bit of us seeing like Veruca's real true self, of that she's just going for it. Like, she's predator Veruca. You know, what are you gonna do? Sit on the ground? Like, I can't. And this scene also, I think, is the first time when this like character assassination shit gets weird stuff happens. So Oz sits down and they start talking about music, and he's like you said, he's like, my girlfriend's coming, and she does, and she sits down. Also, just a side note, like Veruca is hunched over in a way that I don't understand. Just like, well, I don't understand why she sits the way she does.
Maybe she did some like animal work, you know, like actors do, and she's like, this is the wolf in me. This is how wolves sit when they eat their meat. So that's how I'll sit.
Very possible. But like, and I want to talk about it, like a couple of other things in this scene. But the thing that seems really fucked up to me for Oz is that when he gets uncomfortable, he just leaves. Like, he does not take care of Willow at all in this scene. At all for any moment.
Well, okay, so yeah, I feel split on it, because I was like, is he nice here, reassuring her? Because he says like she thinks they're talking about Elvis. They're talking about amps. Whatever. Simple mistake. They said hound dog. I'm with Willow. I would have been like, sure, Elvis.
Sure.
Stole that song from a black person. But like, and so Oz does say like, oh no, we're talking about amps, but I understand it gets confusing. And I'm like, is he being nice? Is he being condescending? I can't tell. And yeah, he doesn't. He just bails on her, and he would never do that. As Willow goes, so goes my nation.
Yes.
Like, I don't think that this is what Oz would do. And
I agree.
I hate it. And I hate that, you know, like, he leaves, Veruca leaves. Like, he leaves her with Veruca.
He leaves her with Veruca. Like, what? In what universe do you not, like, our Oz, the Oz that we know, would be like, Willow, do you want to go, like, talk about that homework thing that you needed? Like, if Oz is nothing if not quick-witted, you know, like, Oz is nothing if not able to get himself out of this situation in a way where he takes Willow with him. Yeah. And he doesn't. He leaves her there. And then, of course, Veruca is like, I guess I gotta go too. Good shirt. And she says it in this shit way. And this is... It's right. It's like, I almost said it's the most heartbreaking moment of the episode. It's not. But it's really up there for me, because we've seen Willow wear whatever the fuck Willow wants to wear for like 3.6 seasons, 3 point whatever the measurement is, seasons at this point, and like never really doubt herself and just like boldly wear what no person has ever worn before. And to see her hear this comment from Veruca and then have Buffy sit down and say, like, why did you let me leave like this? I look like a clown, is good.
Or like a crazy birthday cake, and Buffy like doesn't make it entirely better, because she's like, I thought that was like what you were going for. Buffy, I'm like, people with shitty bandanas cannot throw stones, Buffy. But like, but what I was gonna say is, like, the last time someone said something like this to her, I think, is in the pilot when Cordelia's like jabs her for like finding the softer side of Sears, right? And like, I don't think, please forgive me, and I know your listeners will know better than I do, I don't think we've seen this, and I don't think yet, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say, but there is a fantasy or dream sequence at some point on Buffy the Vampire Slayer where Willow flashes back from like her, you know, like cooler college self to like that exact like wearing corduroy rompers like from the pilot sort of look. And so that's obviously like a a sore point for her of
Yes.
like, it's like the equivalent of flashing back to yourself in like braces or something like this is her ugly duckling sore point. And so to
Right.
have like Veruca press right on that wound,
Ugh.
I'm just like, I wanna nuke ya, Veruca. I don't like it. It's pretty cheesy. I'm thinking about it.
It's bad. It's bad. And then the other thing that I really want to talk about in this scene, which I think is really cool, like this show has already, and you've been here for some of these conversations, Joanna, has already done some really cool things with like conversations around relationships and sex, and like we're growing together with them as they go through high school and enter college. But Buffy and Willow have a really cool conversation here. Of course, it as we all know, it backfires horribly. But before we get to the like horrible things in this episode, they have this conversation about the fact that Oz might have feelings for somebody else, or like, like be looking
attraction.
And like, and I love their awareness in this, because I wasn't this aware in college. Like the awareness of the fact that you can be in a relationship and love somebody and have attractions to other people was not something that like came onto my plate till much later. And so I really appreciate the fact that the two of them are having this conversation, and that Buffy is really leading the charge of being like, Willow, you have, you look at other people too, and Oz isn't this person who's going to leave you. You can be attracted to other people, of course, without it being a threat. Which is true, don't let this episode be your meter. That is true. It goes horribly wrong, of course, in this episode. But I thought it was cool that at this age they were there having that conversation.
And we'll get to this, but like there's a Xander advice scene where
Yes.
Xander gives like stellar advice, and I'm like, who's here with the good advice this episode?
Right? Yes, I have
Yeah.
several X's with exclamation points after them for when I get really excited about Xander's advice later too.
But I guess it's like if Oz has to be the shittiest version of himself, like let's let Buffy and Xander be like the best versions of themselves.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I'm
If we,
there for
if we
her.
lose one of the pieces of our backbone, we really need to pull up the other pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have a little side note, which is just, what is this cage? Because I believe this is the first time we see this cage. Where the fuck are we? What is this cage? What happened?
It's like he's in a mausoleum. And my notes say, that cage frankly looks unsound. It's the most fucking rusty ramshackle cage I've ever been in. And even if I had never seen this episode, as soon as he walked in, I'm like, well, that's not lasting the night. Like, what is that?
It's like every piece of the cage is made of like a different kind of pole. Like they're all like mismatched.
It's like a spooky mansion cage. Like, what is this thing?
It really is. Like, I, for a minute, thought we were at Angel's house. Like, this is the cage that would be at Angel's mansion. 100%. It actually reminded me of, in the alternate dimension, in the Wish dimension, when Angel's in the, like, cage basement. Like, that were the feelings that I got from this weird cage that we never learn anything about.
Nope.
So I just want to take a moment and let you know there's a whole scene here, but I only have a few notes, and I feel like it really sums it up pretty well. Because my notes are, Oz is loose, nice jacket, Professor Walsh, 2 werewolves, what? And then just no, where the O's slowly devolve into straight lines and to fill up the rest of the page. That's where I went.
You and Jenny did such a good job of breaking down the like initial appearance of the werewolf on Buffy Vampire Slayer. I was wondering if you could give me some of your thoughts on the she-wolf.
The she-wolf. Can we get through this episode without playing a clip of She-Wolf by Shakira? No, we can't. So let's just play a real quick. Thank you. The she-wolf, I will say, I do give the she-wolf like 2 more points. If the scale is if the measurement scale is like 1 out of 1,000, I give the she-wolf 2 more points than the Oswolf.
I feel like the she-wolf has been doing like some deep conditioning on one of the 3 nights out of the month, and then possibly applied a flat iron to her pelts.
The she-wolf 100% has a flat iron. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, she's got like a VO5 hot oil treatment that she does on her mane so that she looks glossy and ready to go 3 nights out of the month.
Oh, it's akin to like when you have a baby and you're like, my baby is a girl, so I'm gonna put
Slap a pink bow on her bald head.
Exactly. They're like, how do we let the audience know that this is a she-wolf? I know we're gonna straighten her hair and make it a little more blonde, give it a little body, you know?
Yeah, glossy. She tosses it around.
She does.
Like, yeah. So this all happens. Props to Maggie Walsh for just sort of like being like, oh, you know what? Just gonna step out of here and go. Bye-bye. They wake up, they're naked, they're covered in scratches. And she says, you know what I am? You've noticed since the first time you saw me, which I like. I kind of like that line. I kind of believe it.
Yeah.
And then, but then when they like move this operation to the dorm laundry room where they're stealing clothing, she keeps saying all this shit. And the note I have written down is, she sex purrs all the time. I hate her.
Yes.
Every line is like a little moan, and like I just despise her.
That's the thing is, it's like a little too much. It's just a little, maybe, no, that's a lie. It's a lot too much for me with her because she doesn't have another. Actually, one of my notes in this scene is, couldn't they make her likable at all? Like, couldn't they, like, wasn't it possible wouldn't it have been, and I love to hate her, but like, wouldn't it have been possible to write this episode where we didn't have to hate her so much, where it was like, there was a conflict of like, fuck, like, there's this other werewolf, and like, Oz is like all fucked up because of chemicals, and like, she doesn't even mean to whatever, but instead.
But that's what, I think that's the nuance you would have gotten with like a full season arc.
Right.
Rather than like, let's jam it into like mid-season. You know what I mean? Or like the first quarter of the season. But
That's
like
fair.
I feel like we could have gotten to know Veruca as like, a fully dimensional character, not just some like cleavagey sex bomb to borrow a description for another character, some dimensionality to her. And like there is, they mention in Beer Bad, and I know you guys talked about this, but in Beer Bad, like the description of Veruca is like, dresses like Faith. And like she doesn't dress exactly like Faith, obviously, but like she's got some Faith stuff about her.
She
this
does.
sort of like, especially later when she talks about like how she gets all like buzzy right before she transforms, stuff like that. It reminds me a lot of Faith talking about like, the high she gets after slaying and stuff like that. And so like Faith, whom you guys like love, Faith is this kind of figure done well, where she's like super sexualized, but like has humanity to her, core to her, and like Faith gets seduced by the like ability to kill people and like all this sort of stuff, but she's conflicted, and like it would be nice to have that in Veruca. Hopefully it wouldn't feel too much like a Faith retread, but it would be nice to have that in Veruca, some dimensionality. But it really just feels to me like they didn't have time to do that, and that's a shame.
Yeah, that's a really solid point, because of course I saw that too and noticed that too, the parallels between Veruca and Faith, which probably the audience is so mad at me or us for comparing them, but they are here, and I guess Veruca just doesn't get the time. But
this is Faith done shittily.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I think I don't think it's an insult to Faith to say that. I just think like, okay, Faith is the character done well. Mm-hmm. Faith is a character at least with just like a lot of different things going on.
Yeah.
And different modes. Whereas Veruca has like 3 episodes if you include like a cameo. So basically like, I don't know, an episode and a half, let's say, to like make an impression and be gone.
Yeah.
And make such an important impression that like she throws a wrench in a really foundational relationship in the show. Totally. And that's like, it's I don't think you can do it in an episode and a half. And I think that's like, I understand that there were external factors, but like that's why we have this visceral hate for her, because there's just nothing else. There's no other there.
Yeah, totally. Oh, there's no other there. Very well said. My practical questions about this scene. My practical question, and then I have a couple of other things I want to talk about. But they walk naked to the laundromat. Is that what we are to believe? They stand up in the woods and they walk naked.
And the sun was up. I was like, what time is it? Because like, it wasn't, the sun was up not even in like a gray, like pre-dawn sort of way, but like sun fully up in the woods. What time is it? that the laundry room is deserted for sure, and B, they could scamper there naked the whole way.
Yeah. So I just want to, like, if any of you got any pics of Oz and Veruca on their way to the laundromat, let us know. Let us know.
Streak. And I do like that Oz is just putting on whatever, and Veruca has found like sexy black underwear that fits her perfectly.
Yes, that is one of my other notes. That Veruca has been like going through the washers and dryers, and she's like, "Oh, I'll just put on this old thing," and it's a fully like form-fitting, perfectly like lace black lingerie set. And Joanna, I want to say that I want to find out what Kate Leth thinks about this ensemble, if you will, from Veruca. And I don't know yet what the fashion watch is going to be, but what I do know is that Kate said it's going to be mostly about Veruca. And then I watched the episode and I was like, but Kate, Veruca's naked the whole time. So let's just take a moment, go over to our very favorite Kate Leth and see what she has to say in our fashion watch this week.
It's time for our friend Kate to give you the Buffy fashion update.
Well, welcome back to Buffy Fashion Watch and to another of my all-time favorite episodes because I love to hurt emotionally. I often think that season 4 is my least favorite because I hate the overarching plot and the big bad and Riley is essentially a sack of potatoes with abs, but there really are some bangers, this one included. In rewatching this episode, I realized sort of for the first time how much Buffy and its sensibilities and the way it dealt with issues made me want to be a writer. And you would think this is something I'd thought of before, and maybe it has been subconsciously, but I don't know, it hit me. I cry every single time I watch this episode. Allison Hannigan's performance is so raw and so vulnerable and real. It's like in between the goofy werewolf makeup and the sort of heartless seductress trope, there's an incredibly sincere story here about realizing that you're losing something and there is nothing you can do about it. It's really painful and really honest, and it's one thing that Buffy excels at so much that I think other shows that tap into the genre don't always get. It's something I've always tried to put into my work, whether I realized it or not. Something real, something tangible, something hard to talk about or hard to pin down, and expressing that in between all the candy, all the aliens, all the whatever. And I have to say, Wild at Heart is an incredible example of that. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm right. And obviously, I'd like to talk about Veruca. Her Shirley Manson vibes, one of my first crushes that lasts to this day, and her silver eyeshadow, the little nick in her eyebrow, her abundance of leather pants and sheer tops. She's presented as this polar opposite to Willow, even though Doppelgangland Willow wears twice as much leather and is way more badass, except for the one part in the episode where she's wearing jean bell-bottoms, which takes away a little bit of her cred. But how can we not talk about Veruca when there's not really much else in this episode to talk about fashion-wise? Buffy wears a head kerchief that is truly awful and also something I definitely did in the 6th grade. And other than that, she has some pretty cute hairstyles and a nice sundress, but it's Veruca. It's all about Veruca here. She appears, she disappears, she changes everything. We're coming up to my favorite episode in the entire series in a couple of weeks, and before that we're taking a little stop off in Holidayland. But until then, I'll see you at the mall.
That was our friend Kate. She gave you the Buffy fashion update.
Thank you, Kate, for that wonderful fashion watch. We love you as always. More and more each episode, truly. Joanna, something else I want to talk about also is what happens in this scene, and we've talked about it a little bit already in our conversation, but this is the scene where I've already used the word dichotomy, but it comes up that, like, are you a wolf for 3 days or are you a wolf all the time? Which reminds me of Beauty and the Beast, right? Like, what's the monster and what's the man? It's the same theme is coming up again. And Oz in this scene has a line that makes my heart break, which is where, like, Veruca's like, you shouldn't be in a cage and blah, 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 and then Oz is like, no, I know where I belong. And that's the Oz that we know, right? Like, that's yes, that's true. He does know where he belongs. I don't know what happens to him in this episode.
And then he says, This is the most feeble thing I think I've ever heard anyone say, which is like, she goes, "You should be free," or whatever she says. She says, and then he goes, "Free to kill people. I won't do that. You shouldn't." You shouldn't.
Oh, always convincing our Oz, Got a lot of arguments behind him.
You should maybe not kill people. Don't do that. Think about not doing that.
So then brief aside to this wonderful scene between Professor Walsh and Buffy, where Professor Walsh is really dramatic. And she's like, "I was attacked by wild dogs." Like, were you? Because I feel like we just watched the scene and I'm pretty sure you weren't attacked. I'm pretty sure you saw a wild dog. And I'm pretty sure that it just found another wild dog and then you ran away. I
have a note for you here.
Yes, please.
It says, "Go away, Riley."
Riley, you are kind of like cardboard. Your mansplaining's best to be ignored. No one cares you're a TA, so please go away.
Great, fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you for that setup. I also feel like Walsh is like that thing where there's a character that voices for the audience where she's like, "I think it was a dog, but it might have been a gorilla." And what I say to you is, I agree with you, Professor Walsh. These costumes could be better. We're not sure.
One of them had a flat iron. That's all I can tell you for sure.
One of them
Dog or gorilla, one of them was glossier than the other.
Oh, God. Oh, no. Okay, so here comes a scene I hate. This episode is full of scenes that I hate, but Willow comes in her leather pants. And now, like, we should have been playing, like, bingo for, like, every female character that wears leather pants after Faith. And then we could check off Willow in this moment.
I like it, yeah.
Right? She walks in leather pants. And this is, like, this episode really highlights, I think, the vulnerable, and I've talked about it already, but, like, the vulnerability of sex and like somebody else that you love is desiring someone else, and then you try to make your play, which is what's happening here. Like Willow's like, "But look, I'm wearing leather pants and like we should have sex now." And the worst thing that could ever happen when you're feeling insecure about your own sexuality and your own desirability is that you proposition the person you love and trust, and in that moment they say, "No, I don't want to right now," which is heartbreaking to witness here with Willow.
The sad part is when she tries to like replicate the like morning. Well, there's a lot of sad parts, but the part where she tries to replicate like the previous morning when she's like, "So busy in here," like pulls his hand up to like do the little gesture. Like, "Remember, we've got cute stuff that we do." And like, so Oz doesn't want to for a number of reasons, right? Like his body's covered in scratches. If she saw that, like something, she would know something's up. B, like, I don't think he's showered since he last had sex. And,
right.
So like, that's not a thing that you're going to want to do. And then C, like his mind is preoccupied with what's going on. Here are my notes.
I'm ready for him.
Hi, Oz. Number one, tell her the truth. If not, number two, just go down on her. Because like he could have helped her feel like sexy and desirable without giving the game away. But like he shouldn't, he should tell her the truth. Like that's what he should do.
Yes.
But like if he's gonna be like shitty and not tell her the truth, like at least do that for her so that she doesn't walk out of there in her little leather pants feeling like completely undesirable.
Totally.
Also, I want to note for your younger viewers, listeners, I always say that, your younger listeners, Oz is reading what's called a newspaper. Later, Xander will be reading what's called a newspaper.
Yeah, a lot of newspapers in this episode.
It's a newspaper-heavy episode. They used to put the news on paper
and print it.
And you would read it, and that's how you would find out if anyone was maimed in a wild dog attack the night before.
Yes, and you'd get the ink on your fingers while reading it. It was a whole experience. I miss it. I do miss it. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I do understand why Oz would have not engaged in any sexual activity of any kind, because you don't know where it's going to go, and you don't want to. He's feeling. Yeah, I get it, but he would have told her. He would have told her. The Oz we know would have told her.
Absolutely.
And I beg of anyone to send me a damn email explaining why Oz would not have done that, because it's ridiculous to me. And that's all my notes is, why aren't you telling her? Why are you being so weird? Why are you doing this? I got very angry during this scene.
My go down on her note is not like really real, but it kind of is, because I'm like, if your main excuse is like, I smell like sex and I'm covered in scratches, there are still options available to you. But mostly tell her the truth. That's the sexiest thing you could do in this moment, actually.
Yes,
so, yeah.
agree.
Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. And if you have sensitive skin, you're going to want to hear about their scientifically proven topical supplements. Free from over 1,500 chemicals and preservatives that can make skin red, irritated, or itchy, their products are safe for sensitive skin. It's just one of the reasons they've earned the Skin Safe seal of approval.
They've also earned the Jenny Owen Youngs and Kristin Russo seal of approval, if I do say so myself, Jenny.
I couldn't agree more. I've been using OneSkin for a few months, and after a few weeks, I remember it like it was yesterday. I texted Kristin and I was like, maybe she's born with it. I looked in the mirror that morning and was like, oh, things are happening, and I am happy.
I have used a million billion skin products, and I did not think that I was going to switch off of the skin like lotion, the moisturizer that I used, and the under eye cream that I use, because I have used them for a little while and I really like them, and I've switched completely, which is a pretty big deal. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code BUFFERING at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code BUFFERING. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and if you can, please tell them that we sent you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a co-founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. During her journey, Isla meets new friends, including King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, and learns valuable life lessons with every quest, sword fight, and dragon ride. Positive and uplifting stories remind us all about the importance of kindness, friendship, honesty, and positivity. Join me and an all-star cast of actors including Liam Neeson, Emily Blunt, Kristen Bell, Chris Hemsworth, among many others, in welcoming the Search for the Silver Lining podcast to the Go Kid Go network by listening today. Look for the Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Simon Jack.
And I'm Sing Sing.
And together we host Good Bad Billionaire, the podcast exploring the minds, the motives, and the money of some of the world's richest individuals.
Every episode, we pick a billionaire and we find out how they made their money.
And then we judge them. Are they good, bad, or just another billionaire?
Good Bad Billionaire from the BBC World Service.
Listen now wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
Okay. Then we get to maybe my favorite part of the episode.
Yes, please.
Which is Giles watching Jeopardy, but obviously they did not have the licensing to actually do Jeopardy because it's not Jeopardy. It's like very close to the theme and not Alex Trebek doing the announcing on that clip that we don't see. But Giles like gets the answer, is very mad at the morons who don't get the answer. And then he says, that dinette set should be mine. So these have been your furthering adventures of Giles So Sad and Lonely.
Oh, it's good. Also, that's kind of like just a few weeks ago, I posted a photo of one of our listeners who was on Jeopardy just this past April and wore our Smash the Demon Lizard Patriarchy tank top underneath. You can't, like, if you watch the episode, you don't know it's there. But this person, but this person sent us their reveal. They wore it underneath their button up and their vest and came in second place on Jeopardy. So this is like a little buffering Buffy crossover moment here where we get Giles watching Jeopardy just weeks after we posted a Jeopardy post on our socials.
Wow.
But yeah, Giles is right. So excited to see Buffy. This is like continuing the theme of Giles being so bored and not knowing what to do with himself. He wants things to go wrong in Sunnydale so that he has a purpose. And, you know, whatever. We love Giles.
I used to watch Jeopardy every single night with my family over dinner. And
did you continue on to was Wheel of Fortune before or after Jeopardy?
After. We would not watch Wheel of Fortune after. I think it actually depends what market you were in, but in our market, Wheel of Fortune was after. We did not watch Wheel of Fortune after, but we watched Jeopardy every single night. It was like a competition.
Yes.
In my family, where everyone would like sort of try to yell out answers first and stuff like that. And like one of the best parts about growing up was when you like just started to get as good as your parents at Jeopardy, and you're like, yes.
I did watch some Jeopardy, but I have to say that my heart was with Wheel of Fortune. I still have dreams of being on Wheel of Fortune, but since you didn't watch Wheel of Fortune, but there was always like one person on Wheel of Fortune who was definitely able to get the answers, but just would always spin bankrupt. Like that, they just would land on bankrupt. And I knew that if I was ever the person to go on Wheel of Fortune, I would be that person. That I would like know the answers, but it wouldn't matter because I would keep landing on bankrupt. So that's my Wheel of Fortune truth, Joanna. You've heard it here first.
I believe that you're lucky enough to not land on bankrupt. I think that,
Well, there's only one way to find out. Get me on Wheel of Fortune,
Also, I'm looking at the photos of Ariel on Jeopardy.
Right?
Ariel looks amazing.
It's so cute, right?
Yeah.
I know, I love it. Okay, so now we get to my exclamation points, my Xander scene, our Xander scene, where Xander is really, really giving great advice and being such a good friend to Willow.
This is good advice? 9 question marks?
Yeah. Like Xander just growing leaps and bounds, and this teaches
if you're
us
doing it, I think you should be able to say it.
Yes,
Xander. Yes.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly. I have 2 quotes, right? And I'm sure you have the same. If you're doing it, I think you should be able to say it. And have you asked Oz about it? Like, you need to talk about it.
That's not my second quote. My second quote says, Sarah McLachlan kind of.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's good.
You know, because when you really like want to get down with your partner, and it's just like the winter is cold and bitter.
Oh God,
yeah.
I can't wait until we finish the entire series and I put together the compilation of just Joanna singing Sarah McLachlan on our podcast.
I'll try to work it into every episode.
Please. And listeners, please do your due diligence and help me by grabbing the timestamps of every time Joanna sings Sarah McLachlan for us so that in 4 years, when I'm ready to put together the compilation, one wonderful listener will be like, here's all the moments. But yeah.
I miss my opportunity to sing like In the Arms of the Angels, right? Because like we're no longer talking about Angel on this podcast anymore.
Well,
You're doing it on your companion podcast. So.
I think that moment might come to you, Joanna. You know, like don't count your chickens before they've hatched or whatever. What I wanted to say about Xander is I feel like this is because Xander's not going to college and Xander is still learning and growing. And I feel like this is a really important thing to note that like you don't need to go to college to grow and learn as a person, which I feel Xander is exemplifying for all of it. He's growing and learning as a person. He's watching the environment around him. He's learning from his experiences and he's helping his friends.
Yep. I would say this is justice for Townie Xander, and I'm going to take a drink.
Yes.
It's a Townie moment.
Yes. So Buffy and Oz have like a little moment where they, whatever. They have a little exchange.
My note is Oz is fixing his cage and it's hot. And it's true this is the second time we've because this reminds me of when we got the Spike reveal a couple episodes ago.
Yes.
Where I'm like,
another blowtorch.
Yeah. Anytime a blowtorch and a face mask, I'm like, that's hot. I don't know why. I will examine it on my own time. I will ask my therapist about it, but as it is right now, I had to write down Oz is fixing his cage. It's hot.
You know what? You make a really solid point, Joanna, because we're only 6 episodes into this season and we've already gotten Oz with a blowtorch, Spike with a blowtorch, and Giles with a chainsaw. And I say that is a lot of hot men with power tools for 6 episodes, and I'm here for it.
I don't think this is a spoiler. I don't know if I'm on this episode, but I will just say we might have Yahtzee when we get to the Thanksgiving episode. So wait for the Yahtzee.
Oh, shit.
And the episode that I believe is called Pangs. So, yeah.
Oh, so soon. It's just right around the bend. Okay, so then there's this montage scene of Oz in bed, Willow with her witches, which I like, and Veruca sucking, which is my note. But Veruca is like playing music, but at the bronze, and the bronze is empty. So I don't know if the bronze allows for rehearsal space, if that's what we're to believe.
It looks, yeah. Well, at first when she was playing, I was like, what kind of gig is it during the fucking day, Veruca?
Yes.
And then I saw that the chairs were up. I was like, oh, this is band practice. Okay,
Right.
I guess.
So I guess the bronze is very generous with their time, is what we're learning. That they're just like,
There was. Do you remember that sadness montage from season 3 where like Oz is playing his guitar on the pool table at the bronze? 'Cause, like, we were like, does he just have keys? Like, why is he there? I don't understand. So, you know,
I guess the owners of the bronze are like super chill with the teens of Sunnydale, just using their space on the off hours. Is what we're to believe. And at the end of this montage scene, we see Oz calling someone, and I wrote in all caps, even though I knew the answer, Joanna, who is he calling? What the fuck?
Ugh.
And he calls her. He calls her on the phone.
On the phone.
phone. But I feel like I would have been here more for this arc if we didn't have so many moments of Oz not being a wolf and doing these things. Like, he calls her on the phone when he is a human boy, and he says, you need to come. And he justifies it for himself. I'm sure that's what he's doing in his Oz mind. Well, I don't want her to kill anybody, but he fucking knows what he's doing. Like, he knows. You can tell that he knows. He looks guilty from the beginning of this episode. He knows. And I just find it so hard to believe that he's going to pick up this phone and say, come to fucking 1427 Cage Lane. It's downstairs. I hate it.
Right off Mausoleum Street.
I don't buy it.
This is so funny. Yeah. On the one hand, I don't buy it. On the other hand, I think it's good to not let him completely. I think it's good to not just be like, oh, this is the wolf. He has no control. You know, like, I think it's good to hold him accountable, which is something that there is one moment in this episode where I I don't know about like Veruca, but I am with her. So
okay,
we'll get there.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Okay.
So we're in the cage. We get to the fucking cage. You know, Veruca comes in, like, and he's like, you'll be safe. And she's like, not from you. And then she's like, I sensed you. Did you sense me? And the whole time I just am wanting to throw up all over the cage and all over both of their faces. And then this is another moment. This is like, you picked up the phone and you called her when you were a human boy. And now you pulled her into the cage and you kissed her. And it's before you changed. And that is the transgression, right? I mean, there's a couple of like major transgressions in this episode. One, Oz not telling Willow right from the jump. Two,
and not telling Buffy either.
Yes.
Buffy comes in. She's like, so 2 wild dogs. What do you say? And he's like, dunno.
Right. Like, that's fucked up. You lied twice.
Yeah.
And now you're kissing this girl when you're a person and she's a person and you're not even wolves yet. And it's real bad. It's real bad. And the only thing is that's worse than this is the hand CGI that
they're like Jack and Rose moment. They're Titanic moment, but with wolf hands.
Yes. It's like a slow crossfade from human to wolf hands with, of course, one of the wolf hands having very nicely manicured fingernails because she's done.
Sure. She's a lady.
She's a lady werewolf. Yeah, this is...
Well, and then, but like what I do like about it is that Willow calls them out in the next scene when she like shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Veruca gives her this shitty look, and I hate her.
Yes.
And Willow's like, he's like, I had to do something, blah blah. And she's like, yeah, I could have told Buffy, but your solution is lock her in a cage where we're definitely gonna fuck just the two of us. Like,
right?
She's exactly right that like he has this like excuse that he's made for himself of like, this is all I could do, when in reality like he just wanted to like have sex with her again.
Yes,
that's just true. And this is the moment where like I don't hate Veruca with everything I have when she was like, she has a point, and I'm like, yeah. And he like roars at her, like, get out. I'm like, Oz, you're not the good guy in this. She's not entirely the bad guy in this moment, and you're not our good guy at all. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I want to play this sound clip of this scene because it's the 3 points that we hit of Willow's line, Veruca's line and Oz's line is real good. So let's just go there real quick.
I didn't have a choice.
But you did. You could have told somebody. Your solution? Just put you two together in a room all night? Girl's got a point.
Leave.
I'm just saying.
So, fuck, and I agree with you 100%, Joanna. Like, Oz is trying to redeem himself in this moment, and he is not redeemable. Also, in this scene, just like want to give a moment to the opening moment where Willow walks in and she has like a slushie or whatever the fuck, like a drink.
And she brought him coffee and donuts.
Coffee, right. Ugh. And she just drops everything and her fucking face. And you, Joanna, you've been on episodes with us before we talk about Willow and like what the kind of hold that Willow has on us as an audience. And I want to say that I think this is the darkest we've gotten with Willow and the saddest I've felt for Willow. Just like when you see her face, seeing this scene and just not believe, like all of us, right? Like we're all watching, we're not believing it. And we're watching Willow not believe it. It's just devastating.
The thing that Alison Hannigan can do, which she does, like, especially after Veruca leaves and they keep talking, and I'm glad that the episode brings up Xander and Willow in season 3, and I'm glad it, like, addresses that, all of the ways in which it addresses that as, like, a parallel, I think, are good. But here's what Alison Hannigan can do, which is that she's weeping through all of this. Her eyes are just gushing tears. She's doing the lip tremble thing, all of that. That's devastating. But it's not stopping her from acting other things at the same time. And like, that's really hard to do. I think a lot of people, like, I think actors, it's hard to convey sobbing while also carrying like anything else with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Alison Hannigan can just do this thing where her eyes just like leak, her mouth trembles. You're so upset. But then she's also just like hitting all these other grace notes at the same time. And I have to say, this is another failing of this episode. I love Seth Green. I love Oz as a character. I don't think Seth Green is actually terribly good at a lot of modulations. And that's sort of been Oz's hallmark. And so there are things that he is asked to play in this episode that I don't think as an actor he is quite entirely up for.
Yeah.
And so, when he has to do like sweet and loving, when he has to do like sort of stoic, when he has to do dry, like I think he can do all of those things. I think that's one of the things that make Oz so charming. But when he has to do like overcome with lust or overcome with grief or all this sort of stuff, I think Seth Green doesn't quite match at least what Alison is bringing. And so but she's bringing so much that it gets there for me,
right. She almost brings it for the both of them enough for us to kind of forgive that. But I agree, and I sort of had a note about that towards the end, or at the end when, well, we'll get there, but where I felt the same way, where I was sort of like waiting for a little bit more from his
at the very end.
Yeah. So this scene, I'm like, Oz, why are you not telling the truth? And then the one of the last lines in the scene is from Willow, where she's talking about like, you wanted her in an animal way. Did you want her more than you wanted me? Which is just fuck, man. The whole thing. And then, obviously like Willow leaves in a trance. And this is so believable. I think like Willow's whole arc is like spot on. It's just like the way that she's coping, or probably a better way to say it is like not coping with what she's just witnessed, and that she's like sort of walking right into traffic. Like I buy every beat of it. And there's Riley again, of course, saving Willow.
And I say he is very condescending. Like I don't like this. Like, I don't think you look at what Willow's going on with Willow right there and say like, this is a person like really actively trying to hurt herself.
I agree.
This is a person who's like doesn't know what they're doing. You know, she didn't like throw herself in front of a car. She just like sort of walked out into traffic because she didn't know what she was doing.
Yeah.
And like that's different. And so for Riley to be like, whatever it is not worth hurting yourself. I'm like, why are you're doing a nice thing? and I hate you. Like, you really should take her home. And I'm like, yeah, she's on it. Don't worry. Buffy's got this.
Right?
Thank you, Riley.
We
Thank you for your service.
We
Yeah.
did not need your advice. I agree.
No.
I agree. This is why Jenny and I have a deep dissonance in our Riley opinions, because everything he says, I'm like, dude, you're just saying shit that people already know, and you're saying it louder and manlier, and I'm not here for it. I'm not. Thank you for saving Willow. I will appreciate you for that. But everything else, goodbye.
Bye. This is another thing that Willow does in the next, when they're back in their room. Is something, or that Allison Hannigan does, which she this is a mode. I'm a crier. I'm a big crier. I'm a fan of it. I do it. There's this feeling you get when you've like cried yourself out, where you feel like tired and hollow and sort of dazed. And Allison Hannigan is just like giving that to me in this scene so much, where she's just like scooped out, you know, and she's just sitting there and Buffy's talking to her, and she's just cried her little guts out, and there's nothing in there for her anymore. And
scooped
so
out.
good.
Scooped out is such a great fucking phrase, Joanna. That is exactly it. Scooped out. She really is. And I forgot that the scene was going to go where the scene went, because I was like with her. I was like, oh yeah, I guess she is fine. I mean, she's not fine, but she's like not there. That I actually forgot that the scene continued. And that she sort of is like, put the blame where it belongs. And then I'm going to take a turn here. And so, I mean, this is probably where most of us would go in Willow's position, should we have the power that Willow had. She gets up and she goes to her fucking magic drawer.
Certainly something Amy would do, right?
Hell yes. This is, I mean, I think this is the Amiest that Willow has gotten to date, right? And that's kind of one of my notes later is Willow's getting some dark magic. Like, she's really getting dark in this episode. We have books floating. We have pictures that are about to go into flame. Like,
she calls on Barabbas, Satanus, and the devil. And then I wrote, not great, Bob. So like, I don't understand why you need to call on Satanus and the devil. That seems overkill. But that's what she does.
Right,
so, yeah.
right. And you know, before we get right into the magic scene, there's this Buffy and Oz moment, which I really like. I like the Buffy. I like Buffy in this episode, you know, and you mentioned this, like, that Buffy is sort of standing up and Xander is standing up in this episode. And I think this is one of those moments where Buffy like shows the fuck up. She knows what's gone on with Oz and she's not here for his shit. And she's just like, you know, now might be a time for your trademark stoicism.
Perfect
man.
line.
Like, right?
Perfect line.
A fucking perfect line. And just like says what she needs to say. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Show me where this fucking girl is.
I love that they show up and they don't even need to talk about it.
Yeah.
She's just like, where is she? He's like, I don't know. Like, not like, who? You know? Like, it's like, no, we don't need to talk about it. Let's just go and do some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we get into it, right? Like, this is the scene where they're after Veruca, and of course the foil, come on, guys. She's left her clothes in the forest because she's never wearing any clothes, and she's led you off
decoy pile of clothes.
Yes. And
clever girl.
And Willow, like, God knows what would have happened had Willow gotten through this spell. I mean, I don't want to know, but she sees Oz in the picture and she can't do it. She can't do the spell because she sees him and she loves him. She puts down the fucking picture, and then fuck us all, Veruca's here in the fucking chemistry classroom lab or wherever we are. And she won't stop rolling her neck is my first complaint. Like,
super weird.
She won't, like, what is that? I guess you're right. Maybe this actress kind of like did a lot of animal study, and that's why she like sat more hunched. So. Like, I don't know, but I don't like it to stop rolling your neck. And Oz gets there and fucking.
We should mention why Buffy's not there. She got like waylaid by a commando.
I wonder what that's all. We sure have seen those commandos a lot.
Huh.
I guess it's just a weird thing we'll never find out about ever.
ROTC, right?
Yeah. Yes. In the lab or wherever the fuck we are, we get seen. It's like a scene where they're half werewolf and then they're full werewolf. And I am
listen. Some people see the world half wolf. Some of them see it as half human. I wrote they fight as half humans than as full wolves. So I guess we just figured out what kind of people
Wow.
we are.
Wow.
So I want to ask your listeners, are you the type of people who see this and say, huh, half human? Or do you say, huh, half wolf?
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And then he fucking kills her. He
And
bites
then-
her neck.
Yes. Oh my God, he killed her is my note. Like I've seen the episode more than one time, and yet I kind of forgot that this is speaking of faith, this is like a very Faith moment. Like this is Faith killing Alan in the alleyway and being like, oh fuck. I mean,
And it's not even like oops.
Right.
I was defending Willow and then like something happened and then she died, which is like the cop out death for a lot of like Disney villains or whatever. It's just like your hero can't be seen killing a villain.
Yes.
So like oops, they stumbled off a cliff or whatever. But no, he fully bites her neck out.
Yes.
And yeah, it's pretty rough. And so like Willow has all that trauma. So Willow is like threatened, like heartbroken, threatened by this bitch. Sorry. And then has to like watch her boyfriend kill someone.
Right, which is like it's like almost what you'd want, like right? It's like in the mindset that you're in when your true love has like gone and like had sex with somebody else and you've witnessed it, you want to see this person like just die, go away. But then like the visceralness of this scene of like that's actually what happened is that like he killed her and Willow watched it. And so Willow is, I mean, in shock for sure and destroyed on a level that is probably not understandable by most people on this planet. And we get this moment of Buffy holding Willow, which is really the same scene that we saw when Willow held Buffy after Angel left. That was in Buffy's bed, and now this is on the floor of a classroom, but it's like very, very much the same scene, and the crying is very much the same of just devastation and them supporting each other. And I mean, you know, in this moment it's Buffy supporting Willow, but we've seen this reversed, and it's really beautiful. It's just a really beautiful moment for their friendship, and of course devastating at the same time.
The episode that underlines that in the next scene where Buffy's giving Giles this like commando download, but then she's like, I've never seen Willow like this, blah blah, and he's like, well, you went through something similar and you were okay, so let's have faith in Willow that she can get through this.
Yeah, and it sets us up for the final scene, right? Nobody wants to talk about it. This is like, I have a good friend of mine watches The Family Stone, and she turns it off before the end. Yeah. If you just stop The Family Stone at the right moment, you get a happy movie. You just don't have to. And that's how I feel about this episode. It's just like, maybe we should just shut it off before. I guess it wouldn't be a happy movie anyway, for this episode. But this scene is,
and then Oz is just gone. And you're like, I wonder what
happened. But this scene is just the realest in the worst way. Like, I'm going, and then Willow saying, "Don't I get any say in this?" Like, right? Fucking hell! Like, she doesn't. And she does, and he says no. You don't.
He just simply says no.
Right.
It's like, it's harsh, but it's like true. And and I like that Willow plays this anger beat, but this sort of like a dismissive anger beat before, where she goes, "That's your solution," like sort of like, "Fuck you, that's your solution." He's like, "No, it's my decision," and it's just like that exchange is really good. And once again, as we like alluded to before, I think Allison Hannigan's bringing it 1,000%, and I think Seth Green is bringing it as much as he can, but he can't meet her. He doesn't have quite the chops to do it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I agree, because when we work towards the end of this, I mean, we get this scene where her face is just soaking wet, and like you believe it too. It's like it's not one of those scenes where you're like, oh, I guess maybe they put like some water on her face. It's like, I believe that Allison Hannigan has just bawled her fucking eyes out.
Do that. She can just leak from her eyeballs.
Yes.
And then she says, and I can hear this right now as I read the words off the paper, which is just, "Oz, don't you love me?" Just like the way she says it.
Oz, don't you love me?
My whole life, I've never loved anything else.
it's good writing. It's iconic, I think, Buffy writing.
Yeah.
You know, but as you say, like, then there's this shot of him getting into his van and like he's just not delivering to me what I want from him in that scene. And I know that
Right.
Oz is a stoic dude, but like I mean, I almost wonder if they like tried some takes where he breaks
Yeah.
down crying and like it just didn't land, and they're like, okay, let's just do this instead, you know?
I agree. I feel like, yes. I mean, like, I have to believe that what they wanted here was for him to lose it, because that's what the whole scene is setting us up for. He gets in that car, he goes to start the fucking ignition, he can't start the ignition, and I think we all know that what we're supposed to be seeing, right, is like him losing it. And yeah, I would love to know that too. If anybody's got the inside scoop, I would love to know if they did some takes where they attempted that. But yeah, Oz is off because he doesn't know where the wolf in him ends and the person in him begins. And he just needs to go out in the forest or whatever and like figure it out. But
People, kind of a worldwide epidemic.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to say, you know, like I've been very pro Oz and pro Seth Green this entire podcast, so I don't want like any of your listeners to take this the wrong way, but I do think that there's a difference between, you know, a charismatic, appealing performer, which is what Seth Green is. He's like very appealing in other things, like Can't Hardly Wait, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then like, you know, an actor with a tremendous amount of range. And just because he's not the second doesn't mean I don't still think he's the first. I do, you know?
Totally.
And I'm like devastated that he left the show. I in my heart, Oz never should have left the show.
Mhm.
You know, like, yeah, keep him as a recurring character. I don't like that explanation that Joss like didn't think that he could be like, why the F not?
Right.
So anyway,
I agree. But I wonder where we shall go. You know where we should go before we wrap this episode, actually, Joanna, is we should cut real quick to Jenny, who will hopefully bring us some levity with a Sexual Tension Award. We'll announce the winners from Beer Bad and get us some new nominees for this episode.
Sexual Tension Award.
Hello, friends. It's me, your pal, Jenny Owen Youngs, with this episode's Sexual Tension Awards. Before we get into Wild at Heart, let's talk about Beer Bad for a second. Coming in, tied in last place, we have Xander and his lighter, and frat boys and the sound of their own voices. Yes, yes, yes. Coming in at second place with 17% of the vote, we have Buffy and foamy beer. And coming in way in first place with 57% of the vote, we have Willow and feminism. Hell yeah. You'll note that in the Twitter poll, Kristin used the emoji of the girl floofing her hair and then a middle finger for this pairing of Willow and feminism. You're welcome. Now for the episode at hand. Wild at Heart is a rough episode, especially for sexual tension, but don't worry, I dug deep and I found some solid pairings for you to vote on. First up, we've got Veruca and her microphone. Gosh, she gets so intimate with that piece of metal. Next up, we've got Willow and Buffy's academic excellence. She's really into it. Also, how about at the very beginning in the cold open, Spike and villainous monologuing from afar. He seems really, really happy. Happier than I can remember seeing him while he is going off about how Buffy had better watch her back right before he, of course, gets electrocuted. And last but not least, we've got Xander paired up with Thrift. He is in a landlord-tenant dispute with his mom. He's not paying rent, and he's really into saving that money. So please cast your votes, make your voice heard in this beautiful democracy of ours. We will be posting the poll on Twitter. We are at BufferingCast. I have been and shall continue to be Jenny Owen Youngs. Thanks for joining me for this segment of the Sexual Tension Awards.
Sexual Tension Award.
Okay, so what do we have? Are we all just heartbroken? Did Jenny save us with the Sexual Tension Award nominees?
I feel better. As long as she said the word foamy, I feel happier.
I'm certain that she did. This is a really, really heartbreaking episode, and I think beautifully done in many ways. I'm glad that we had Marty Noxon for this episode. I think she delivered for us, as she does. All right, Joanna, thank you so much for walking us through this heartbreak together. I was happy to have you here as we journeyed through Willow losing Oz. And will you tell all of the good people where they can find you?
Well, listen, if you love the writing of Marty Noxon on this episode, then you might want to try watching one of the new shows she has going right now over on HBO called Sharp Objects. And if you do that,
fuck yes,
it's very good. And if you do that, then you might want to listen to a podcast I'm doing that's running with Sharp Objects called Still Watching, Sharp Objects, that I'm doing through Vanity Fair with the great Richard Lawson. We had an interview with Gillian Flynn, who wrote Gone Girl and the book Sharp Objects, on the podcast this last week. Oh no, this will have been weeks ago. So yeah, check it out. It's a really good show on HBO. A lot of good, dark, twisty, like trademark knocks and stuff going on there. So
amazing.
You can hear me talk about there. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at @JWroteThis or on my other podcast, Storm of Spoilers.
God, Marty Noxon just like doing all the good shit forever, you know? Like she's just always got her hands in the good pots.
She like has a lot to say about women and their dark places.
Hell yes. Hell yes. And as you know, I am Kristin Russo. You can find out all of the things that I'm doing when I'm not speaking to Joanna Robinson or Jenny Onyoungs about Buffy the Vampire Slayer at KristinNoeline.com. That's KristinNoeline. And Joanna, not to take you by surprise, but I have a jingle for my name now. So I'm just going to play the jingle because I think it's going to be the first time that we play it for everybody right now.
Kristin with an I, Noeline.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for making me the song that I've always been due. You can learn about my work with LGBTQ communities over there, and obviously that spelling, which you'll never forget now that it's memorialized in a jingle, can also get you to my Twitter and my Instagram handles. And you can, of course, send us all of your feedback over at bufferingthevampireslayer@gmail.com. You can follow us at BufferingCast on Twitter, on Instagram, and also on Facebook. And of course, you can support what we're doing here over on Patreon. You can go to our website, bufferingthevampireslayer.com, and you can find out about Patreon. You can also review and rate the podcast on iTunes, or you can just like go on over to our store, also found via our website, and get yourself some sweet new merchandise that like smashes the patriarchy and does all sorts of other fun Buffy-related things. I think I did it. I think I said all the things, Joanna. So now I'm going to say the line that will get us to our howl. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Until next time. So appropriate this week. Like I felt like, you know, it's truly the wolfiest week we've had.
There's a werewolf.
Amazing.
How can you leave me? How can you go? What were we even? I used to know. My heart, my center, oh, it cannot hold. Was it ever real? Where will I go? How can you leave me? How can you go? What were we even?
Hi, I'm Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life. I talked to acclaimed director and executive producer Roland Emmerich.
When I saw the first race, I was like giddy.
Actor Ewan Ryan.
For an actor, that's a dream, although you do get a lot of sand in your sandals.
And so many more.
You helped summon those ghosts back onto that stage.
Every day when I went to set, I was giggling about what I saw.
I think it's going to be a breathtaking thing.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Nowadays, trends and news cycles change faster than we can blink. But there are some things that withstand the test of time. And if you're looking for a connection to something timeless, and maybe also a glimpse of life at a slower pace, I believe everyone can relate to the very human experiences explored in Jane Austen's novels. And that's where I come in. My name is Alison Larkin. I'm a writer, comedian, and narrator and host of the Jane Austen podcast with Alison Larkin. I spent a lot of my childhood in the part of England where Jane Austen lived and wrote, and now that I live in the States, nothing gives me a sense of homecoming quite like narrating her books. On this show, you'll listen to award-winning narration. I'll give myself a pat on the back for that. As well as conversations with actors, writers, and other fascinating people who all share a passionate love for Jane Austen. So please, join me as we embark on a wonderful journey through Jane Austen's work. Be sure to listen and subscribe to the Jane Austen podcast with Alison Larkin, wherever you get your podcasts.